Welcome to our tutorial on effects. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at effects and where we put them in Pro Tools. You apply effects to inserts and sends in the signal chain. Let's hide some parameters so we get a better view of this window. With analog recording, you'd get effects by connecting your console via a cable to a piece of hardware that processed the audio. In your computer software, effects are software-based usually. They're called plugins because they don't run on their own. They need somewhere, like your Pro Tools environment, in order to function. Pro Tools is thus the host application for the plugins. Of course, you can still use hardware-based inserts like a compressor and a preamp for a microphone. When DigiDesign released its first digital audio workstation way back when, it also released the code for the program architecture so that other developers could write compatible, symbiotic third-party plugins. Software plugins are really important in the audio industry. In fact, they've replaced racks full of audio processing gear. Like buses, because plugins are virtual and digital, they have some powerful advantages over these racks of audio processing hardware. You can use the same plugin over and over in one song on different tracks if you want. If you really like the way you've set up a plugin, you can save these settings as what's called a custom preset and then use it later in a different song. Plus, there's no noise or signal degradation either. Plugins require processing power, and the more plugins you use in one song, the higher the load on your CPU. Each time you launch a plugin, even the same plugin, but inserted on a different track, you need more computer resources. When you select a plugin for an insert slot, you're actually launching an outside program or creating an instance of the software process at that point in Pro Tools' virtual signal flow. You can instantiate the same plugin many times. This creates multiple instances of that software process, and that's why it requires so much more processing power. Too many plugins can slow down your computer a lot and even crash it, or they can make your playback choppy and interrupted. So make sure you've got some horsepower to spare on your processor because the plugins are well worth it. Pro Tools gives us a way to check your system usage, window system usage. This meter gives me an approximate reading of the load on my CPU, and if you're in the red, you're in trouble. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the kinds of effects. There's many kinds of signal processing that are commonly used in audio. They can generally be grouped into two categories, dynamic-based effects and time-based effects. EQ, or equalization, compression, expanders, gates, and limiters. These are effects that change the dynamics or frequency and volume of your audio signal. Normally, you'd use these on inserts rather than sends because you don't typically blend a processed and unprocessed signal together. You're going to need 100% of the audio processed as it plays. The second group of effects is time-based. They affect the duration of sound in some way, and the most common ones are reverb and delay. Generally, you don't hear a signal with 100% processing via a time-based effect in your mix. It's usually blended with the dry or unprocessed signal. There are also some special effects that don't fit neatly into either the dynamics or time-based categories. For example, Pro Tools provides a dithering plugin, which helps maintain sound quality when you export from 24-bit depth to 16-bit depth. 16-bit depth is the quality you need for a CD. The click plugin under Instrument enables you to hear a click during playback and recording. A lot of plugins are included with Pro Tools. Here's what Empowered gives us. LE and HD users will have many more. Let me just describe some of the functions of the various plugins briefly. EQ, this is Audio Pro jargon for equalization. EQ works by boosting or reducing the amplitude of specific ranges of frequencies or bands within the audio. The treble and bass knobs on your home stereo are essentially EQ controls. The controls in an EU plugin allow for much more sensitive fine-tuning than your stereo does. Fine-tuning your EQ can really help with a mixed blend of your various instruments. For example, if you find that two high-frequency instruments like a violin and a flute and a high voice don't sound in balance. You can boost or reduce the frequency that's unwanted. Generally, it's recommended that you reduce before you boost. Next, we have Dynamics plugins. A compressor takes the loudest part of audio and reduces its volume. Compressors are commonly used to add some punch to individual tracks, especially your bass and drums. A limiter is used when you've got sudden spikes that send your otherwise perfect recording into the red on output. It may not have clipped during the recording, but when you mix it with all the other tracks, the master output is in the danger zone. A little limiting can fix this problem. Let's check out a couple more Dynamics plugins. A de-esser helps remove unwanted sibilants or hissing from your track. For example, a vocal with a lot of s or p. An expander. Let's check out an expander now. Okay, that's the last one on our list. An expander is like the mirror image of a compressor. It reduces the volume of sound below a certain level. Noise gates are a type of expander. They can help filter low-level noise from your work. Reverb is the most common time-based effect, and it's used to give your track the spaciousness of a real performing environment. Normally you can choose presets like a church or a small room, or you can adjust the controls to get the sound you want. Let's look at a delay now. Delay causes a sound to be heard later than the original audio. If used well and carefully, it can create a slight echo effect that thickens a vocal very nicely. Modulation allows for pitch shifting. Pro Tools provides a few other plugins too. There are some special effects plugins that are pretty common in audio recordings. Chorus mixes a slightly delayed and detuned copy of the original signal to make it sound as if there's more than one instrument or voice playing in unison. A reverse plugin flips your signal from back to front, giving you something like reverse cymbals. Flanging combines a signal with a very slightly delayed copy of itself. It doesn't create a traditional echo or delay, but the original signal and the copy create a feedback loop that has an edgy and sweeping sound. We're going to be exploring some of these effects and how to manipulate their control interfaces in more detail in subsequent volumes of this course. And this concludes our tutorial on effects.